Hey everybody, this is a quick video to show you how to incorporate lens flares into your projects. These are free lens flares. All you need is a vanilla version of After Effects, no plugins required, which is pretty awesome. All you have to do is download the project file located below in the description. So let's jump into it. The project file is going to have an After Effects folder, an Assets folder, and a Notepad file labeled Light Tracking Script. Let's jump right into the After Effects folder and open up the composition or the After Effects project labeled lens flares. All right, here we have our beautiful, pretty, gorgeous lens flare. Here we have all the components, and here's the lens flare. What we'll do is hit the shy switch located on the top here, and that's gonna hide everything except for the primary controller of the actual lens flare. So if we move this position, you can see that the lens flare tracks properly to it. So this is the main controller for the origin of the lens flare. Okay, let's unshy everything. So we'll hit the shy switch again. And this is going to show us all the components of the lens flare. Now, this is color coded, so anything yellow is going to be non-visible in the comp, but it is a controlling layer, so it's for parenting purposes only. Anything in blue is an actual visual lens flare asset that you can see in the comp. So for example, let's go to ARM8. ARM8 is color-coded yellow, so it is a controlling layer. And then right below, we have Spot 8.1 and Spot 8. And you can see under the parenting properties that these are both parented to ARM8. So ARM8 drives Spot 8.1 and Spot 8. Now, the real cool thing is that all the lens flare assets, except for one, which is the rainbow TIFF, they are all based on After Effects primitive shapes. So what you can do is customize them. So let's say Spot 8, for example. Let's say I wanted to change the color of Spot 8. So with the layer selected, we can go up to the Shape Fill, select the color, and let's say we wanted to make it more of a blue instead of a purple. So we'll make it more of a blue. Hit OK, and you can see that the color has been changed. So you can change the color of an asset. You can also change the transparency. So with the layer selected, hit T, and you can make it more or less opacity. You could also change the size, so hit S, and you can change the size of something. You could even add a blur effect, and I think I already have one on this one. So under Effects, you can see how I have a blur effect, and I can make it more or less blurry. So basically treat it like any other layer and make adjustments to it as required for your project. Now, let's say, for example, you want to create your own lens flare assets. You like the idea, but you think all the lens flare assets that I made suck. I'm hurt, but that's okay. What you're gonna do is you can create your own shape. So for example, we'll scroll out, just select a non-layer, so we have none of the layers selected. We can go up to a create a shape. So let's say we wanted to create a rounded rectangle, so we'll select that one, and we can just draw one really quick. And there it is. It's located on the top, shape layer 1. Let's rename it to new shape. Great. And then what we're going to do is decide which controller we want to parent it to. So let's say I wanted to parent it to the ARM8 controller. So we'll make that one visible, and there it pops up, this white pentagon. And with our new shape selected, let's drag it down below ARM8. And we can close the menus there. Good. So what we're going to do now is parent the new shape to ARM8. So we'll pick whip it and select ARM8. Under the parenting properties, we can see it's parented to ARM8. Perfect. However, we have a little problem in that even though it's parented, it's not in the same position as the ARM8 controller. So we can fix that by adjusting the anchor point of the new shape. So with the new shape layer selected, you can hit A, and that'll open up the anchor point, and just play with it until it's centered. And we'll move it down a little bit. Oop, other way. Perfect. Centered enough for this. So now what we can do is turn off the visibility of the ARM8 controller, go back to our center lens flare controller and move it around. And you can see now that our new shape, let's fit this up. You can see that our new shape is tracking perfectly to the rest of the lens flare, which is great. Now, hopefully you can see that you are not restricted to just After Effects shapes when it comes to customizing your own personal lens flares in this comp. You could easily apply this process to an imported image. Okay, so how do we make this work for our project? So let's close this out, and we won't save it. And let's open up our sample project. Lens flare tutorial, sample, great. Good. Okay, so here we have a setup. We have a 3D camera, a light, which I renamed sun, and that's a point light in 3D space. And we have an image, which is sky, and I made it 3D and I pushed it back a little bit in Z space. So now what we need to do is bring in our lens flare assets. So we have to import the composition. So in the project bin area, right click, go import, file. There's the lens flare project file. We'll select that and import. And then it'll come up with this folder, open the submenu for the folder. There's our lens flare comp. We can double click that. And what we want to do is select all the assets and copy them. So we'll go from the top center main controller all the way down to spot 9, holding shift. And we've selected them, go to edit, copy, jump back into our sample comp, make sure our timeline selector is at the beginning, go edit, paste. And here we have our lens flare inside of our new comp. However, we have already a problem in that the lens flare does not last the entire duration of the comp. So with all the lens flare assets and controller selected still, scroll them all the way across to the very end of the comp. And that way they'll last the entire duration of the comp. So you can see it lasts all the way to the end. Good stuff. So we'll hit the shy switch so it doesn't look so cluttered. And I like to move the camera above, but that's just me, doesn't matter. Okay, so now what we need to do is parent or make the lens flare center track to the light. Now the problem is we can only make the lens flare center track to something that has an anchor point. So with some investigation under the light, if we go under the transform information, you can see that the lights in After Effects don't have anchor points. Now we have an easy workaround. We'll just create a null object and parent it to the sun, and then we can track the main center of the lens flare to the null. It sounds complicated, but it's super easy, so just follow along. We'll go Layer, New, select a null, move it just above the sun. Great. We'll make a 3D object, and we're going to open up the position of the null and the sun. So both layers selected. We'll hit P. We're going to select the position of the sun, go edit, copy, and then go into the position of the null, edit, paste. And all that did was move the null's position into the exact same position of the sun or the light. So they are in the same place in 3D space. Good stuff. Okay, so let's downsize these, and the last thing we want to do is parent the null to the sun. So we'll select the pick whip and move it down to the sun, and now we can see under the parenting option that the null object is indeed parented to the sun. And we can select the sun and move it around, and we can see that the null moves with it. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is finally get the center to track to the null, which is tracking to the sun, and the green grass grew all around and around. Okay, so stay with me here. We're gonna go into the center and hit P, and that's going to open up the position. Now holding Alt on your keyboard, you're going to click on the stopwatch by position. And that's going to open up this sort of little text box in the timeline. This is where we're going to put in the expression. Now you're probably freaking out. It's like, oh my gosh, now I have to deal with expressions. This is getting too hard, I give up. Well, luckily for you, in the main project file that you downloaded, there is a notepad file labeled light tracking scripts. All you have to do is open that, copy all the text. So right click, copy, go back into here, and right where you need to put the expression, just select all the text there so it overwrites it, right click and paste. And there you go, and then click off. Now it's gonna give you this warning and an error message and blah, blah, blah. It's freaking out. That's okay, just hit okay, go back into the expression, and under null, you have to actually specify the exact name of the layer. So I just put null there. So in this case, it's called null space 1. So we'll go null space 1, and now you won't have the error message. So you can click away, and we're all done. And we can deselect that. We can hide the visibility of the null, so we don't need to see that, and everything else looks happy. We can go into our camera orbit tool, and you can see that the lens flare is tracking to the light in 3D space. And we can also move left and right. So you could animate the camera, you could also animate the lens, or the actual light itself. So if we move the light around, and you can see that the light moves with the actual light itself. So this is really great if you imported a 3D camera and a 3D light from Maya or Blender or Cinema 4D or whatever. You could easily track your lens flare to it. So again, the After Effects project and the required expression are available for download free below in the description, and you are welcome to use it for any type of project you want. So go nuts. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.